First of all, let me thank you for the invitation and also for the allocution. Listening to you, I realized that quite a few years have elapsed. It had a touch of commemoration. So in order to suppress this horrible impression, I will first of all thank the personality who invited me and the person who are present here, personalities, professors, students, everybody is welcome. Insofar as the matter, the abolition of death penalty is concerned, I shall dedicate, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur, my impromptu to the European Union. First of all, for you who invited me, but second, because I'm a deeply rooted pro-European. When I'm asked how would you define yourself, I always answer, je suis un Français européen ou un Européen français, as you would like. But both for me are tightly and irreversibly connected. I believe profoundly in Europe. I think that Europe should always go further in its integration. I think that what has been done in Europe by the past generations, and I hope the coming one, is unique in history, because those many states, united by culture certainly, but divided by so many factors, up to a point where, war has been the usual cruel but constant practice of European people. This has been replaced, and that's where I put the accent, by the European Union, 28 members, the largest population, apart, évidemment, the most populous states like India, but also, and mostly, by the will of the people, thanks, of course, to the foresight and views of the leaders, who, great men undoubtedly, with the vista, la vision, for the future. 3 years after the war, at the Congress of La Haye, Churchill, Adenauer, Schuman, Monnet, de Gasperi, Spaak, decided that the old days of war were definitely over, that we should turn the page in Europe and build up a union of the people and the nations that had never existed but could be dreamed of. And that was realized not by strength, not by war of some conquerors in Europe have tried to, but by the free will of the people. And precisely, this is why Europe is, in my eyes, a unique example. Furthermore, not only did Europe create in some way by itself, but also it is nowadays the continent in the world where human rights and fundamental freedoms are the best guaranteed. Not only they are proclaimed, but they are sustained. Not only they are sustained, but they are controlled by international court and various proceedings. Apart from the national guarantees, our freedom have superior European guarantees, which they accept and which assume protection of their citizens, even against their own state. Voilà pourquoi I'm so deeply attached to Europe. And the third characteristic in my eyes, but not only mine, is the fact that that bloody continent, from which so many crimes have been committed against humanity, not only inside of Europe, but through colonialism. This continent is the one among all where death penalty has been banned. No death penalty in Europe in the 47 members, because there is one missing at the appeal. One only for all over the surface of the continent, and this one, which is certainly not a hazard, but in which you will find the confirmation of a historical factor, is Bielorussia. Bielorussia is the last Stalinist state in Europe, purely Stalinist. I've been there to plead the cause of abolition without success up to now, I must say, any success. But what is striking is that you still live there as you did live under, if not Stalin, at least Mr. Brezhnev. So apart from this, which shows you the historical connections between dictatorship and death penalty, nowhere in another state does death penalty exist in Europe. And not only that, but to show that in some way the flag of abolition is raised on the European continent. Above that, you have international regional convention. I say international because they group nations. Regional because they extend all over Europe, which are Protocol number 6, Protocol number 6 to the great Charte européenne des droits de l'homme, la Convention européenne des droits de l'homme, which ensures to all of us our fundamental guarantee. There is, as I say, one protocol among the few ones, which one after the other completed the original text. All the countries in Europe have ratified it, and it says precisely that no state which has ratified the convention should ever re-establish death penalty. This is an engagement, and it has extremely important, not only moral, but legal value, because if for one or other reason, one state would be, let's say, carried on by a vague flux of national populism, and his leaders would decide to re-establish death penalty according to the principle that European law is superior to national law, they would have to leave Europe. And I know what that would mean in terms of economy and the remaining to be barred from Europe. So you have that, which adds to the national protection. And third, you have a European jurisdiction, the most probably powerful institution in terms of guaranteeing fundamental freedoms and human rights. La Cour européenne des droits de l'homme, the European Court of Human Rights, which stays in Strasbourg, as in the field of death penalty, given many decisions, all of which can be summarized in the fundamental dictum which you have in this decision: la peine de mort est un châtiment cruel, inhumain et dégradant. Death penalty is inhuman, useless, and degrading. Consequence, if one of the states which have kept or practiced death penalty would claim the extradition from one of the European countries to its country in order to judge him, the answer is the legislation of that country still keeps death penalty will be no. We do not deliver accused or prosecuted people, whatever the cause, to countries where they could be executed. So you see the strength and the attachment of the whole of Europe to death penalty. Its roots might lie in the horrible crimes which have been committed in Europe during the first period of the 20th century. And there remains in the memory quite vividly the feeling of guiltiness for having committed those crimes, and we have the motto in Europe: nevermore. Nevermore war between our nations, nevermore such crimes being committed, nevermore death penalty. That's why I dedicated, Mr. Ambassador, Mesdames, Messieurs, my little impromptu to the European Union. But apart from that, what's the scenery in the world? Progress of the abolition have been at the same time speedy and even above expectations. We in France abolished in 1981, 35th nation, 35e nation to abolish. In the world, or in Europe, we are on the world stage. Times have elapsed, unfortunately, 33 years, and since then, from 35, the number of abolitionist countries has grown up to 100 approximately. Result is, abolition is largely the majority in the United Nations. This also, when I think of the past, is an amazing result. Of course, it is not enough. Of course, we should only have reached our aim when we could say abolition is not only irreversible, but universal. And precisely, that's what brings me here at the call of Mr. Ambassador. Why? Why India? Why at my age? I've been in India already, always really come for pleasure, meeting friends and visiting sites. But to talk about death penalty, no. But I accepted immediately. Why? Because this is a decisive moment. At the same time, for the Indian people and state itself, and I would say, au-delà, far above, for the whole fight for revolution. India is a nation particulière. Mrs. Albright, the Secretary of State, used to say the United States is the irreplaceable nation. History teaches us that there is no such example in ever. But she said it. I would say India is a specific, unique nation in the world, not only because it's such a great power, inhabitants, resources, intellectual resources too, no. Because you must realize that for the remaining of the world, you Indian people and India as such appears as carrying on a message. It has a special aura in this world. You were born as a state after the colonial period under the silent number of non-violence. You symbolize in the world the force, the strength, irresistible of non-violence approach. And there you are, executing people. What a contradiction, what an unbearable contradiction, and what, for those who like me, admire and appreciate so much Indian culture, what a shock, and for what reasons? For what reasons? I can understand very well the politicians who think elections are difficult. Crime is horrible, and it is. I know it. Crime is horrible. The public wants to be protected against crime. I shall show that I have the strong hand, and there proceed with executions. First condemnation by the judges, and then executions. You, in India, had left the side of the ones who execute in, if I'm right, 2004. But in 8 years afterwards, the crimes were horrible, but crimes were horrible before. Crimes is always horrible. There were 2 executions taking place. And among the camp of abolitionists, where we all expected India to be present at least for a period of time as abolitionists de facto, it was such a blow because it was India, and not some other states where different culture prevails. And this, of course, was resented so deeply that when ambassador called me and said, yes, I will come, not like so much traveling anymore, but I have to tell to my Indian friends that they should keep in mind what they stand for, what they represent for all of us, what civilization and culture they are the heir, and they should be ahead of the movement for abolition and not let leaders